Hi, welcome back to our presentation all about water in your garden. This next section focuses on micro ponds. I think it's about 15 minutes long. I'm going to share with you some pictures from Gypsy's garden and her experience and techniques for putting in lots and lots of micro ponds. Remember, if at any point you've had enough, you can always stop the video and come back later. It's up on our website. But when I made it in one big go, so I've had to split it in half to make it a little bit more manageable. Hope you enjoy it. Here we go. If you were coming on the workshop, we'd be handing over to Gypsy at this point, and this is one of her drawings or her paintings. I find them absolutely inspirational. I'm sorry I didn't have time to ask her to change the typo. This is all about habitat. Gypsy's passion is micro ponds, and she's got so many in her garden. They are stunningly beautiful, and they all do different things. And in some ways, they're better than just one pond because you can do so much. You can dedicate them to different plants or different wildlife. And this, for me, just says it all, really. The different damselflies she's got, and making nature welcome. And this is an adaptation of a photograph she took of a frog in her pond. And the plant you're seeing is water hawthorn, a beautiful, beautiful flower. This year, that water hawthorn with that lovely flower will flower May, June time, and then if you take the flowers off, it will come back again in September and flower right the way through till the first frosts, really. When the wind blows, those hawthorn look like little walking soldiers. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So, what's happened to our ponds? What's gone wrong? Well, the good news is 80% of our, well, maybe it's not good news, 80% of our ponds are now in our gardens. And they reckon that's 2 to 3 million people have ponds. What I don't know is whether that includes all the fish ponds. And historically, most people who put a pond into their garden put fish in it. And we're going to encourage you not to do that, or to go for micro ponds and have one dedicated for fish. I've got a fish pond. My husband loves them. They're beautiful fish, I have to say, but they devastated the wildlife. And now we've got 2 ponds for wildlife and 1 for fish, and we're all happy. So we know from the early slides that only 70% or 70% of the ponds that were out in the wild have gone, but 80% of our ponds are in our gardens. We've encroached so much on wild habitats. We've gone with intensive farming. We've been draining land because we wanted to reclaim it. We've been digging up peat bogs. This is all crazy, isn't it? Now we understand it is crazy what we've been doing. Those peat bogs hold carbon, they hold water, there's thousands of plants in there that we just don't understand how they contribute. They provide habitat, but we've been digging them up so we can have potted plants. Bonkers. We've been building on land, we've been cutting down trees and habitats, we've been building roads right the way through some of those habitats. A pond, if you make a pond, you're opening your arms to wildlife and they will come and find you. Now, if you go on to the Wildlife Trust's pond making, they suggest you do absolutely nothing. Make your pond, sit and wait and see what happens. And I've got a friend who's done that, and she's deeply disappointed, really disappointed. We're going to make a slightly different suggestion. We're going to make a suggestion that you get some plants, and we're going to make some recommendations of what you put. You get some plants in there. There's a lot you can do with habitat around your pond to make it easier for wildlife arriving. And we're going to talk through that in the next set of slides. Next question. Is your garden too small? Well, no, it's not. It really isn't any size. You can do this in buckets in your backyard. You could even do something for wildlife on your windowsill. Think about those bees who are thirsty. If you've got a bucket of flowers, beautiful pollinator flowers, put out a bucket of water or a shallow tray of water for bees, put some pebbles in it. Birds, they may well come and drink from there. You too can participate, but we're going to assume that you've got at least a little courtyard garden when we talk about this. Don't need to have a big budget for this. You can work with the budget you've got. We're encouraging you to recycle. If you've got an old bucket and the handle's broken off, use that. Watch out, people are often putting out things they don't want anymore. All sorts of different sizes and depths, they can all be used. Even ones with slight holes. You could make a bog garden. If they're just trickling out really slowly, or if they're leaking quite badly, put a little bit of tape across them. If they drip drain, it doesn't matter because you can top them up with water, but you could grow some nice marginal plants in there, which will attract the butterflies and the bees and the hoverflies, which I adore. You can do all sorts of design. You really can. You can go for anything you like. I'm totally inspired by Gypsy's garden. Waterfalls, fountains, baths for birds, plants, who knows, pot frogs, toads. And it's not just about the pond. It really is about everything else you put in around it. So come on, who's going to use your pond? Have a think. Write a list. Make a list. What do you think? Just think it through in relation to your garden. What wildlife do you think is going to come, or do you want to come and use your pond? Because you can design for it, and also you can go out and look for it. Okay, so here's our list. Not saying it's exhaustive, but here are some ideas. Frogs, obviously, toads, obviously, newts. There are 3 different sorts: smooth, pillated, and crested. It's unlikely, but not impossible, that you'll get crested newts. Please don't go out looking for them. If you've heard they're in a pond in Stonehouse, don't go fishing for them. They're incredibly rare. It's a really good idea, if you have got them, to let the Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust know. They'd be really excited by that. There are companies who, when they're building, the building companies have to get them in and get them to go and take the crested newts out and rehome them. A friend of mine's being used to rehome some. It's really important we protect our crested newts. Invertebrates, they'll come, lots of them. They are so essential in the food chain. The more I learn, the more I realise I don't know. Well, I know so little about these invertebrates and how many there are, but I know they're really important from the food chain. I know they eat each other. I know that their larvae grow into flies and insects, which birds feed on. The more we can do for all of them, the better. They keep your pond clean. Bit like all that bacteria in the soil, they look after your pond. Larvae and nymphs, really important. They feed they feed my fish. The nymphs, the dragonflies come out and then the birds eat them. You know, the cycle's amazing. Water fleas, water boatmen, snails. Snails keep your pond clean. The more we can support these, the better. Getting plants into your garden will really help these creatures. Look at that, it's one of my favourites. That's a common blue damselfly, and it's sitting on a lily, an iris leaf in my garden last summer. Ponds are really important breeding grounds for moths, damselflies, dragonflies, and of course, other insects. But those, you can be sure, if you get your ponds up and working, there's a good chance you'll get at least moths and damselflies. And there are different types. There are red ones. There are different types of these. The damsel ones, different colours. They are stunningly beautiful. Also, I've said before, water for bees, water for wasps, flies, ants. Things need to drink, and that includes insects. And we need to make it easy for them to get in, making a beach, making ramps, planting plants where they can go down them, up them. And if they do happen to land in the water and they get out, they need to get out, that there's an easy way for them to get out of your pond. All of those need to be thought about in your design. Mammals, I've got foxes in my garden. This is one of them. They regularly go under my little acer tree and drink from my stream that runs into my pond. It's a pumped stream. It's absolutely beautiful, but I notice that generally the foxes like to go and drink from there. Blackbirds do too, but that's in the bird section. Make sure that you provide for these mammals. And we brainstormed a list: hedgehogs, you need to make sure you've got a way of hedgehogs getting out of your pond. They may well go in for a swim. Yeah, they can swim. But they need to get out. So make a ramp, perhaps with some wire netting on it. Make a shallow beach area with pebbles on it so it's easy for them to swim over and get out. And you're going to need to think about that if you do a big micro pond too. Or anywhere that you've got a lip, you've got to think about how would mammals, if they got into my pond, get back out. And that's very important in your design. You can use pebbles and you can use stones to make steps out. I saw one on the internet the other day, a Belfast sink, where somebody had made stepping stones up one end of it and then filled it and put some plants in it. It looked absolutely gorgeous. And then she'd made steps down the far side because she hadn't dug it into the ground. She'd left it as a raised bed. So it was actually getting in and getting out. Badgers, they need drinks. You've got a huge garden or a garden my size, we get muntjac deer occasionally in the garden. I happen to say I wish we didn't, but we do, and they're all part of wildlife. And that's been a big piece of my learning. I am now supporting all wildlife, whether they're ones I particularly like or not. Squirrels, mice, rats. Yep, I've got rats in my garden, but my foxes catch my rats. So I'm very happy that I've got a nice part of the food chain looking after my garden. Birds, oh, doesn't that look good, having a good old splash about in there. They're going to drink it, they're going to have a bath, and if you sit out of an evening on your looking at your pond, you'll see insects. We're really lucky here, I'm top of town in Stroud, that we've got swifts, and in the evenings for a couple of months they are so noisy, but they're up there eating insects. And I'm about to this year put up some swift boxes. It's really important that I make sure that I'm doing what I can in my garden for insects so that those swifts have got insects up there that they can eat. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever seen swallows, they come down and they dip down and they drink from a pond. So for some of you with bigger gardens, you may well see birds drinking on the fly. Oh, reptiles, God, I'd love to see a grass snake in my pond. I really would, but I understand for some people that's scary. By the way, grass snakes aren't poisonous, but if they do nip you, it hurts. But they are stunningly beautiful. And adders, I personally, again, would love it, but I'm centre of town. I doubt I'll get an adder, but if I did, I'd be really happy. And they like water too. Okay, action part now. Making your pond. Look at this. This is one of Gypsy's little areas. I'm just going to talk for a moment about all the things I love. See at the back, just under the word making, she's got some irises there. And the two different sorts of weed we can see in that pond. The irises, if a damselfly had laid their eggs in there and the nymphs have been in there for a year and they're now ready to hatch, they would crawl up those stems in order to get out. And I see it all the time in my garden. If there were tadpoles in there and they came out, they once they're little frogs, they would feel really protected by all of those plants around there, that there's shelter for them, and then they can get away into thicker, denser undergrowth at the back. Then on the right hand side, Gypsy's got a water lily in there, and I think water lilies are beautiful, but I think they can be a bit invasive in a pond. But look, she's just got one just for water lilies, but she's planted things like creeping Jenny, which is coming over the edges and giving protection. This close-up one looks like another water lily, and you can get ones for micro ponds. So we'll see if we can get that put into our pond list. Left-hand side, I think that isn't a water lily, but it looks a little bit like it, and I forget its name at the moment, but I know it's on my list of plants. But I want to go back to the right hand side of the one in front. It's got a stone there, again creating habitats. If you make some piles of stones, all sorts of things will creep into them. Pebbles around the edge, logs around the edge, things that create different habitats around the edge will really make the all the plant life feel really welcome and able to move around as it needs to. But now to your ponds. What do you need to do? Well, how many do you want to make? Have a think about it. Where are they going to go? Where are you going to put them? Do you want to put them in different bits of the garden? Do you want to clump them together? Anything. You can do absolutely anything. What are they for? Do you want to dedicate them to something? Do you want some fish in one? So you're just going to make that for fish and understand that that's not so good for other wildlife. Do you want one as a bird bath? Do you want one for bees so they can drink? Do you want? It's really up to you, but it's worth deciding what you're going to do with it before you do it. And importantly, are they dug in or are they built up? Both's important. If you're going for a bird bath, then obviously it doesn't matter how things get into it because the birds will fly down. But if you want to provide it for other wildlife, you perhaps need to make ramps up as well as ramps down. Perhaps you're going to dig them in like this, which makes it much easier to grow plants over the edge and have them end up looking more natural. Have a think about it. Might be a good time to pause the video and have a think about what you want before you go on. Okay, so plants provide food. This is why we're saying it's really important to have plants in there. You can see looking in here, I can count 6 different sorts of plants in there. That little tiny duckweed on there, then we've got the water hawthorn, which is the long skinny leaf. We've got some creeping jenny around the side. So we've got some of the, I'm not quite sure which one it is, but a floating plant in there, which is a pond plant, and there's the frog hiding in amongst it. If you can go native, we're going to provide you with a list, and we're also going to tell you where to get it from, because that's often the problem. You can read all these lists, but then you go, God, I don't know where to get that from. Oxygenators. You might want to get some particular oxygenating plants so that they help look after your pond, and also that then is good for all the wildlife. Plants that you can plant across the top and around your pond, which will come and creep into your pond for water. They make the edges look nice. Might take a couple of years to get it how you want it, but start now. Marginals, that gives a nice transition. You know, if you've got a pond with a shallow edge, you can put some in there. You can actually create real bog gardens too, and then you've got this lovely environment for the wildlife to move around. Mosses look fantastic. They like it shady and damp. You might need to manage the aggressive ones, but that just means you can share them with your neighbours. You know, every so often you take them out, cut off a bit, hand it over to somebody else who's trying to do a new pond or put in another one. Or compost them. All of this can be composted. And you might need to just manage that side of it. Okay, let's have a look at shelter. These habitats provide shelter, and you can see here, it's a great example of where the logs coming into the water provide roots out, the pebbles around the side provide shelter, and corridors through. The plants creeping in will enable things to creep out. There's so much you can do around your pond to provide shelter. I moved a flat stone the other day while I was trying to build my brand new bog garden, and underneath it, amazed it was underneath there was a common newt, which was really exciting. I knew I got newts in my pond, but you know, there it was hiding in this crevice of a stone. So logs, grass, plants, ferns, corridors, create camouflage for your wildlife and create exits. And make sure you've got height and variety. Okay, where are you going to put those plants? Well, if I were you and I was doing lots, I'd go for a sunny shady mix. So different things which need different things can move about. Connect your ponds back to corridors. Make sure it's easy for the wildlife to move in a protected way. Ponds for different things need different places. Some plants are really happy in the shade, some need full sunshine. We've put we're putting quite a lot of information into our plant list for you, so that when you're looking through it, you can see whether they like partial sun or full sun. These are 2 of the frogs in Gypsy's garden, obviously enjoying being out in the sunshine for a bit. Think about the entrance into it and think about the exits out of it. Remember, those nymphs need to get out. Create deep ponds and shallow ponds, different things for different animals, and maybe in different places. You know, perhaps your shallow pond is out where the bees will feel more comfortable. Bees will like to stay in the sun if they can do. And of course, think about child safety. If you've got young children in your garden, you're going to need to make sure that you put some sort of netting over the top. And you can do that. You could create with some wire netting a way to stop the children getting into it, but still allow the wildlife, the frogs, to get in, allow them a place to get in. But children can drown in very small amounts of water, so please think it through carefully. Okay, some pond etiquette, do's and don'ts. Do use rainwater if you can. Your wildlife will just be more comfortable, but if you can't, well, you can't. Just perhaps only use it to top up, or let your pond, if you're filling your ponds, let them sit for a week or so after you've made them before you start adding your plants. Put in shelter as much as you can. Stones, logs, sticks, plants, lots of plants. Up to 75% of a pond can be plants. Be aware though, in hot weather, the level will drop quicker because the plants aspirate the water out of the pond. So don't panic that you've got a hole in your liner. It's probably just the plants sucking up all of the water in the hot weather. But the more you provide plants with roots and places for animals and invertebrates to hide, the better. And use a variety of plants. It'll make it prettier for you and better for wildlife. About once a year, scoop some sediment out from your pond. If it's a brand new pond, you obviously won't need to do this for a few years, but just do monitor it, but only do a little bit at a time. And that sediment, you just put it on the side of the pond, to be honest. You don't need to get rid of it. It will just rot down into the soil. Do leave some bare earth somewhere around. Remember that some animals like bare earth, that most bees like bare earth for making their nests. Okay, pond etiquette don'ts. Don't take water from existing ponds. If that pond's got some sort of infection that you don't know about, you're going to put that into your pond. Really bad idea. Avoid tap water if you can, but there's lots of examples of people who've just used tap water and it's worked fine. Our recommendation is not to introduce fish or make sure that they've got their own pond. And Gypsy has fish in one of her ponds, absolutely beautiful, but they're just in that pond. Don't be too quick to top up the pond in the summer. Remember, it's natural for ponds to lose water. If it was out in the wild, they would lose in a hot summer. So don't panic too quickly. It's all right for the level to drop. Sometimes it doesn't look so pretty because you start to see the liner. But if you can, resist doing it. Let the water drop perhaps 15–20% before you start topping it up. Really not recommended to import frogs or spawn. If I were you, give it a while. Just give it time for them to find you. If there are other ponds in the area and the frogs in the area, they will find you. Much healthier that they've laid their spawn in the pond, they know the environment, and then they'll return to your pond. Please don't take plants from the wild. We can't recommend it. It's really not a good idea, and there's so much available online, and we will recommend where you get them from. Okay, we're going to play a video. Rather than me create this, this is from the RSPB, and this is how to make a wildlife pond in your garden. Okay, I couldn't have done it quicker. Let's just recap on that. Dig a hole bigger than your bowl or your bucket, put it in, level it, create some exits and entrances depending on the size of your bucket, create shelter stones, logs, gravel, plants. For a bog garden effect, put some earth around it, or maybe use some other shallow trays which you fill back up with the soil you've taken out. Fill it with water, and if you have a new idea, put in another one. That's the way it goes. Okay, final slide, nearly finished. This is my new bog garden and pond. I created it in March 2020. I will do a whole separate thing on my learning about creating a bog garden. You can see at the moment it looks a bit like a pond, but it's planted up. I've got all sorts of things in there: ajuga, marsh marigolds, lobelia. What else did I put in? Some arum lilies. And I can't wait to see that look like a right mass of colours in the summer. I'm sure it's going to be better next year than this year, but I'm getting going and I'm going to see what works. My pond, well, I wanted to make sure that I dedicated one pond to wildlife. The one behind it is actually now dedicated to wildlife as well. But I'm so delighted. I just love the water features so much. You can see there's some plants in there. I've put some regular forget-me-nots around the edge. I've made that exit with pebbles so anything that goes in can get out. And the plants in there at the moment are ones waiting. They were for our workshop. We've got some plants to share with you, some marginal plants and some pond plants. And as our own plants become thicker, we will be dividing them up and sharing them with you. I'm so excited. And I chose to put in this little £10 pump. I got it on, where did I get it? I got it on eBay. It's a little £10 pump, and it really does. When it's sunny, it's sending up a great big fountain, and the rest of the time it's just dribbling. It catches me unawares at times when it suddenly starts working. I'm absolutely thrilled with it, and I can't wait to see this develop. So good luck with your ponds. Check out our website. I'll be putting up our list of ponds, both pond plants, marginals and bog garden plants for you. Good luck. We've got a Facebook group. Please start sharing on it. Just show us pictures of what's happening in your garden. Inspire other people. I'd love us to be able to meet up soon, but who knows what's going to happen in the near future. But good luck with your gardening. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks for watching.